Welcome to Chanakya, where you get the right guidance at the right time. Today we have a situation from Ashraya, a situation that is felt by many Scrum Masters. Let us explore this with our experts, Ananth and Vasu. Welcome to the show, Ananth and Vasu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shiv.
Ashraya is a Scrum Master for a next-gen diet self-diagnostics app in a startup. After the beta was launched, there were many comments from beta users with suggestions on a lot of additional features that can be implemented. The team and the product owner were thrilled that their backlog was more than full. Okay. But when the team got together to plan for the general availability, they were not sure which stories to pick, because many of the stories involved technical challenges and the team was excited to track those technical challenges. But the product owner was insistent that only the functional stories should be picked up, as the beta had gone fairly successful and they wanted a really solid product for general availability. Since many of the suggestions were cryptic, the team felt that they needed to do some more study before they understood the full functionality and also the technical challenges involved. But the product owner wanted the team to start right away with all the functional stories and assured them that he will be available for any clarifications even during the sprint. He also added that he was also not clear about some of the requests that had come and mentioned that some research needed to be done before he can provide those clarifications. Now let us ask our experts how Ashraya can handle the situation and make progress. Ananth, first, your thoughts?
So the beta is good, but there is this battle of technical versus functional stories here.
Right.
I think first thing you can make out is there seems to be some kind of disagreement between the PO and the team. I would think Ashraya can sense that as well. And what he could do is to is get them to work as one team. That's a priority. And often this indicates, often cannot say always, but often it indicates there's a lack of common purpose. As to what is this GA release about? Right? So I think Ashraya can get them together. Right? And help the process of that developing a common understanding, and that acts as a glue for the team.
Okay.
I think the second thing he could do is, there's been a lot of beta feedback, right? What that means is they would have got some new insights in terms of customer context, but also some technology options. Right? And it'll be good for the team to come together again. Ashraya can facilitate that.
Okay.
And share some perspectives on that, and again that will bring them back to how are we driving towards the product goals, right? That understanding will also become common. And once they've done that, the next step is obviously is to figure out how to prioritize these stories so the team can get on to working on them.
Right. Right. Okay. What I understand is that in the context of the general availability, they need to have a shared common understanding. I think that is very critical for them to converge. Thanks, Ananth. Ananth talked about this prioritization. Now, Vasu, do you have any thoughts on how the team can do this common prioritization?
Yes, Shivguru. See, there are many techniques for doing prioritization. Most of them are subjective. So one is like stack ranking, in which you force rank all the stories. But for doing that, you have to have discussions and arrive at a consensus. But Shivguru, you mentioned that they are not able to arrive at the consensus between the PO and Scrum Master Ashraya. So Ashraya may find it slightly difficult. So there are some techniques which are less subjective. So one of the techniques which reduces subjectivity is known as weighted shortest job first. It's quite a mouthful. It's not so complicated. We'll call it WSJF. In this, what we do is we look at a few attributes of the stories, like the business value, the time criticality, opportunity enablement, and risk reduction, along with the size. We scale on these attributes using a 5-pointer or a 10-pointer scale, calculate the WSJF for the stories, and then we prioritize based on or sort it based on WSJF. So we have a prioritized backlog on WSJF, and it includes both technical and functional stories. So this is a technique they can use for prioritizing their backlog.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Vasu. I think one of the challenges that we commonly hear is about assigning a value, the business value. This way, what I understand is that you do a ranking of that in a 5 or a 10 point scale.
Right.
I think that will reduce a lot of ambiguity and make the team feel
Yes,
confident. Okay.
it does.
Okay. Ananth, you also spoke about a prioritized backlog.
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand that that is a common backlog that has both the technical and the functional stories. Now, can you elaborate a little more on the technical stories as to why are they important and who creates them?
Yeah, so there are two sources, and I like the way you've used the term technical stories. Some teams tend to use the word non-functional stories, and non-functional stories typically come from from the PO as they collect requirements as non-functional requirements, right? And these could be things like performance, scalability, maintainability, security, all the ETs that we used to talk about, right? And these are things that are collected at the time of requirements, have to be part of the solution, right? And those are owned by the PO would prioritize them. The other source of technical stories is the team themselves. And this can happen, for example, teams looking at some architectural options or design alternatives or technology choices, right? And they may have to do some exploration before figuring out, okay, which way to go.
Right.
And some of these things, it may be sometimes as simple as, hey, which data structure to use for this particular, detailed design when they are doing it. So, and often, these stories directly do not carry any business value, right? But while they don't do that, they carry, they do consume bandwidth.
Oh yeah.
Right? You can't do them without effort. So what I would recommend is the product owner and the team need to come together and look at capacity allocation, maybe even sprint wise, just to make sure that both sides are balanced, and it's going to help them achieve the release purpose. Yeah,
I think that's a very practical tip. While you have a huge backlog, see what your capacity is. Good. Vasu, in this case, there seem to be a reasonable number of stories with ambiguity. Okay. And the team also needs to do some experimentation before they decide on how to implement things. So, in this situation, what would be your recommendation for them, considering that they are working towards the GA release?
Yeah, they seem to have a lot of uncertainties, and it is not surprising given the state they are in. The product is evolving, and they are getting a lot of good feedback and interest on the product. So what I would suggest is that they should try to have as short a sprint as possible. In fact, even going for a week-long sprint. With that, what happens is they'll be forced to break down their uncertainties into smaller chunks and also get it validated faster at the same time. Some of the teams, like Ananth was mentioning, they need to do some research, experimentation, data structure, decision, etc. They do it in something called as a sprint zero, which typically is for a few weeks. But considering this situation, it may not be feasible. So they should go with shorter sprints. I would recommend another method called Scrum, which is based on Kanban, flow from Kanban, and it uses the structure of daily stand-ups, sprint planning and retrospective from Scrum. Using Scrum, you can deal with the uncertainties and get them closed faster. This, along with the prioritized backlog we talked about, will help the team go forward and reach towards their goal.
So, what I understand is that the team should now focus more on the flow, right? Since they have a backlog and they have a general availability release which is upcoming, see how can they clear things faster, of course taking into account the capacity that they have, right? So, let me try to summarize whatever I picked up. I think there are a lot of points. I think even these to start with should help Ashraya. My takeaways from this discussion are: the Scrum Master first facilitates a session between the product owner and the team to arrive at a common understanding for what is needed for the general availability release. And to do that, technical stories may also be required to enable the functionality and support non-functional requirements. These, as well as other technical stories, should also be in the same backlog. Now, prioritization techniques, let me try that, Vasu, as the weighted shortest job first, right? WSJF, I think that's simpler. Okay, can help the team in including the PO to prioritize the backlog items more objectively. And of course, appropriate capacity needs to be considered, and capacity based planning will help them clear as many of the stories as possible by taking shorter sprints, maybe even a week, and adopting a Scrum-Ban approach, which is the best of Kanban and Scrum together. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah,
sounds
that's
good.
good.
Okay. Thank you both for sharing your thoughts. I'm sure that Scrum Masters like Ashraya will find these experiential insights very useful. Thank you for joining us.